Hi everyone, this is Apollo. Today I am going to demo how to create a custom vertical scroll bar using JavaScript and the DOM, the HTML DOM. So what I'm trying to accomplish is this. You've got um, you have a view that has a specific width and height, and you want to put in data that's going to be longer than the height of the view. So this custom scroll bar will do this. You click and drag inside of this scroll bar area, and you scroll up and or you move your mouse up and down, and the ticker is going to move, and also the child view is going to move as well. So let's take a look at the structure a little bit. So this is our view element has a specific width and height. It's got a position is absolutes, and then a specific width and height of 500 and 300, and it's going to have an overflow hidden set to or overflow set to hidden, so that any of the content inside of it doesn't come out of its bounds essentially. And then it's got a border, and then the child view, which is just a div. Um, it's going to let the table that's inside it take up whatever space it's going to take up, and it's going to sort of encapsulate or border whatever space the table shows. So the other part is this scroll bar, which is that it's highlighted there, this gray area, and that's where we're going to let the user click and drag the ticker around. And the ticker, obviously, is this guy. And all it is just a rectangle, essentially. It's a div with that's gray, and its position's absolute. It's got a specific width and height. The position for the scroll bar is also um, absolute, and it's got a specific width and height that's um, sort of relevant to the view, the main view. So we let the user click and drag the mouse around, and notice like when the mouse goes outside the scroll bar, that it's still doing its scrolling. So there's a specific JavaScript call against the DOM you can make for that. All right, so let's go to the code. Any code or the code I'm reviewing, it's going to be publicly available out there under Bitbucket, Apollo Rocks, Pure JavaScript. So go look for that. First thing, let's go ahead and take a look at the code. I'm using Visual Studio Code. So let's take a look at how we created the document. This is index.html, and within here we created the main view element, which is this div, again with the absolute position and a specific width and height. Overflow is hidden. It's got a border. Then we have this child view that is also who's positioned absolute, but its width and height is not absolute. It just will bound whatever child element that's inside it, which is this table. And we've defined some columns here: first name, last name, address, and created some rows with cells in it, and we just have a bunch of data in there. So that's how we created the visual portion of this, or the data that's sort of inside of our view. The next thing is we're going to incorporate some JavaScript here. I created a bar scroller JavaScript file that has a class that manages the view and the user interaction. Here I've got document on ready state change. It just checks the document's ready state, and determines if it's complete or not. When it's complete, it calls on document ready, which just creates a simple bar. And we're going to find the view element using this document get element by ID. We've got view element. Child view element is also child view element ID in the HTML element. And then we just instantiate. We did this twice. We only need to do this once, so we don't need this. We've already got that first one. So we've got, all we've done is instantiate this simple bar class, and then attach the views that we found, which is view element, child view element. And then we just gave a function as a callback when the scrolling is done within this scroll bar, this simple bar. It just calls up. It just lets it calls this function to let the client know that, hey, we've scrolled. So that's how we sort of initially create our HTML elements, how we hook up our simple bar to the views that we want to do scrolling with. All right, so to bar scroller, using ES6 here, using a class. And our constructor, we're just defining a bunch of properties. And some of these are undefined, but I define them ahead of time so the IntelliSense can detect that it has these properties. But we have view element, child element, which are the views that we're managing. The width of the scroll bar is that ticker height, view width, view height. We're going to just do some calculations to get those. Same thing with child width and height. And then we're going to create the scroll bar div at some point when we attach our view, and ticker div as well. And the ticker position, I don't remember if we are going to use that or not, but the out of view height is important because really that's what we're going to be sort of base our scrolling on. So the non-view height is, you see the text in the highlighted blue area there. The area that doesn't have text, that's the out of view portion of our GUI, and we're going to determine the height of that. And as we're scrolling through here, all we're doing is taking a percentage that this scroll or this ticker is in, and we're just going to adjust the offset of this child view so that it moves it up and down along the, or using out of view height and the percent that the ticker has moved down. So let's take a look at the code real quick. Setting up this on mouse move handler, this is going to be a function that we're going to need not once but twice for mouse down and mouse up events. On scrolled is the callback that we're going to call when a scroll action is being done by the user. And fixed child height, if we don't want to use the height of, the calculated height of this child object, and we want to use something bigger than that, because it might be a virtual scrolling situation where you're only rendering the GUI that you need to render, and then but you know what the height of the whole GUI should be, then that becomes useful. All right, so constructor, set up all your properties. So attach views, which is called by index.html when the document is ready. This is, all it's doing is capturing the view element, child element, and capturing these parameters into this instance, or setting the properties for this instance. So we're going to calculate the widths and heights of the main view and the child view, create our scroll bar, create the ticker, and register for mouse events. All right, so calculate widths and heights. All we're doing is we're taking the main view element and we're just getting the offset width and offset height, which is the height of the elements as it appears on the page, in the HTML page. Same thing with child view width. We're just getting the offset width, and we're calculating the child view height. But if the fixed child height is provided, then we use that. Otherwise, we use whatever is rendered by the HTML DOM, essentially. All right, so the out of view height, again, it's the part of the child view that's not visible within the main view. So we just take the height of our child view and subtract the height of our main view. And we just want to make sure that that isn't a negative value. So if the child fully fits inside of the main view, then we don't really need to do any scrolling at all. But we're always showing the ticker bar and the scroll bar, regardless if we need scrolling or not. All right, so the next thing we're doing is create the scroll bar. And it's pretty straightforward. You use a document object, you create an element, and we're creating a div element. So that's going to give us the scroll bar div. That's a local variable. We set the class or the instance variable scroll bar div to our local scroll bar div, but we just use the local variable name to sort of help set some properties. If you did this at scroll bar div, etc., that would be fine too, but it's a little bit more shorthand this way. So all we're doing is setting some styles here. Position is absolute. The width is going to be, for our scroll bar, is the width, and just do some offset to make it look pretty. Height is going to be pretty much our view height minus some small margins there. They're all in pixels, and these I think you can put numbers in these. It might assume pixels, but I just put pixels on there just to be clear. Background color, it's just pretty much gray. Border is lighter gray. Cursor is default because it'll sort of take up whatever cursor there is. If you're tabbing from screen to screen or from app to app, it'll look funky. Left is going to be offset from the right of the width by the bar width, and top is that. And then we'd use this append child to view it to our main element, view element that we received in the constructor of this instance. Next, we'll create the ticker, and it's a similar thing. Its width and height is it's smaller. We're not putting a border around it because it just a little bit it makes it look better. I'm just gonna set a background color, and then we're gonna append that ticker to the scroll bar div. All right, so the magic next is this register for mouse events, and what we're doing is we created a few functions to handle those mouse events and pointer events. So one of the things that we're doing is we're setting that mouse handler to when that event occurs, we're capturing the mouse move event and capturing this function, and we're doing this on mouse move that bind this. But the bind means that when this function is called on mouse move, when you reference this has to reference some sort of object other than the calling, other than the object that's calling this function. So when you do bind this is an instance of this bar scroller class. So when you register for this move event, which is here, the scroll bar div on mouse somewhere, where is it? On mouse move, dang it, this event, add event listener mouse move, this on mouse move handler, it's going to call this function, but the bind this will make it so that this refers to the instance instead of the window or the target that's calling, the element target that's calling this event, this function. That was a little bit confusing, but let's take a look at the on pointer down here. And again, it's setting up the callback when a pointer is clicked down or tapped down. It's going to call on pointer down. We're doing the binding again to this instance of the class, and then mouse down, mouse up, same thing. We're just capturing these events. So on pointer down, when the user clicks the mouse button or taps the screen, it's going to do this set pointer capture. And all it's doing is it's going to, when I tap the scroll bar, it's going to capture the mouse so that any mouse events just gets routed to this particular element, this scroll bar div. And then when I release it, it stops capturing it. All right. Next is on mouse down. And all it's doing is, again, when the mouse is down, we're going to register for this mouse move event using our mouse move handler, which we initially set up here on mouse move, bind this, and we assign on mouse move handler. And the reason that we had to do that is to make sure that when the mouse is released, that we unregister or remove our registration for this mouse move event from that list of listeners, essentially. So we provide our pointer to the function. Again, if you could have done this on mouse move dot bind down here, but I think when you do that, there might be two different pointers and it doesn't work correctly. So we just captured on mouse move handler, on mouse move function within this member property so that we can register and unregister for that event. All right, so on mouse down does a scroll to ticker, and we'll talk about that in a minute. On mouse move also does a scroll to ticker, and then on mouse move has this other special function which is prevent default, and it just prevents selection of this text. So when we move this and we move out of the scroller, if you don't have that prevent default, it will select other objects around it. So prevent default prevents that behavior, that default behavior. All right, so the next thing is scroll ticker, and we're doing we're determining the ticker position from this event. So mouse move, you provided the event.client.y, and oh hey, this is incorrect. Scroll to ticker. It's interesting that it found it. Oh, it doesn't matter because it'll take this anyway. Ooh, I don't like that. I'm gonna have to change this, so you'll have to check out the correct version of that. Right now, if you look at the check-in for this particular scroll bar, it's using this check-in 1.0 bar scroller initial import. I'll have to change that. Somehow this still worked. I'm surprised it didn't give you an error to say, hey, event.client. Not a good thing. Let's see if it works. Anyway, see if this works. There. And then, yeah, the scrolling still works. Somehow that, yeah, event.client.y, there must be a global event object, would be my guess, but not sure about that. Anyway, so ticker position, scroll to ticker, this gives you the position of the ticker relative to its parent scroll bar div. So it's just going to go in and make sure that the ticker position doesn't go beyond the view's height, and it also doesn't go below, it doesn't go negative or above the scroll bar div. So what we do is, once we know where the position is supposed to be, then we just go and update our ticker style, our ticker div style, and its top position to the ticker position plus the pixel designation there. And then we determine how far along the scroll bar this ticker has moved, right? So it'll be 10% there, it'll be 50% here, 100%. So once we determine like the proportion that it moved along the y-axis there, we'll take the ticker position divided by the view's height. Once we determine that, we'll take a look at the out of view height and determine how much of that we need to move up. So we'll take the out of view height, which we calculated earlier when we attached the view, and multiply that by the proportion that the ticker moved along the y, and that's how much the child view should move. So we just take the child view element, update its top value, and it should be length the view should move. And then if the on scroll, if no one's registered for that or no one's specified a callback for that, then we just return. Otherwise, we go in and provide the visible height, the coordinates for those. So we have where the ticker position is really this, and the ticker position plus the view height. As a matter of fact, it's probably better if we do it this way. Let's see. Ticker position, and then ticker position plus height. All right, on the fly coding. And that's pretty much it. So in order to sort of see this for yourself, go to the, dang it, where are you at? You are here. Go to Bitbucket Apollo Rocks Pure JavaScript and take a look at that index file there. For this one, you can just go, here's a JavaScript. This is the project. You can just double click on this index.html. You don't have to set up a server to serve up this page on MacBook anyway. It might be different for PC, but for MacBook, you don't have to set up any type of HTTP server. All right, what else? I think that's pretty much it. Some things, clean code, always good. Separate out your functions so you sort of know what you're doing. This is the primary function: calculate widths, heights, create scroll bar, create ticker. The event handlers are all separate functions instead of sort of embedded within the code or within assignment of the event. And I think it's pretty straightforward. So hopefully you find this video helpful. If you have any questions, just leave it in the comment sections. Thank y'all.